Good morning, everyone. We are in Palace of Europe, in Parliament Assembly Council of Europe. We are together would like to talk with human rights activist, defender, originally from Kenya but based in Geneva, the one of the leader of Africa Against the Torture, a non-governmental organization, Mr. David Koros. Mr. Koros, can you talk a little bit about what are you doing exactly with your organization Africa Against the Torture?
Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas. It is an opportunity to explain to you that African Center Against Torture is an international organization based in Geneva. We are protecting and eliminating torture in various countries around the world. We are focusing much on the migrants and refugees along the transit region from Africa, away from Libya to Italy. We do document various violations of human rights like torture, rape cases in detention when the migrants traverse the sea and in detention centers in Libya. And this is what we are doing in Europe. We have been organizing site events at United Nations in Geneva. We have been bringing together civil society groups to discuss on ways on how to eradicate torture on transit region. It's a new approach, it's a thematic, and we believe that is the right way for state to comply with the prevention of torture.
Thank you, sir. And also, as Ukrainian, I would like to ask you one question. The last month, the Kenyan delegation officially visited Ukraine, to talk about the future bilateral support between Kenya and Ukraine. What do you think about that? What do you think about if current government of Kenya can do something more to support Ukraine with war against Russia?
Yeah, that was really a good idea. To me personally, it is a solidarity because you see Russia is actually using political issues to settle out their own case. But I believe the initiative that Kenyan government is doing to ensure that there is a bilateral talk within the two countries to engage economically on how to move forward, I think that is a basic idea.
Of course, because if we're talking about the United Nations, a last voting in favor Kenya vote to support Ukraine from this reason. But sometimes some African countries would like to provide this discussion in support with Russia. For example, in February, it was 5 countries who supported Russia in the United Nations voting system. It was North Korea, Syria, Belarus, Russia, and Eritrea. Why do you think the Eritrea still have good relations with Russia after war happened in Ukraine?
Thank you very much. To be frank enough, when you check the background of the human rights violation in Eritrea and some other countries like which actually did not support the Ukraine, you'll agree with me that some of these countries which supported Russia, they have a human rights violation. Their track record for human rights violation is worsening, is worrying, and that is why most of them tend to support the Russian community, and that is why we are saying that we need to come boldly and condemn those countries which support Russia, because that is not the way to go. We need to check about those countries. These are the countries with prevalent human rights violation. Their track record on human rights is questioning, and they have, it's really worrying that some of these countries are supporting this. If you look at Eritrea, there is a lot of dictatorship, there is a lot of human rights violation in Eritrea, and that is why most of these countries support it.
We're together, sir, now in the center of European Parliament. But at the same time, it's far in Africa and exists 145 Assembly of Interparliamentary Union in Kigali, Rwanda. We know this organization, and summarize 167 world delegation, including all African countries. What do you think now, how African countries can do more supply or more support for Ukraine to fight against the Russia aggression?
Yeah. To me, I believe that it is the way to go, because this conference will facilitate more dialogue, and then it opens to African community to focus much on the root cause of the war Ukrainian conflict. Some of these countries are really don't understand why the two countries are fighting. And that is why there is a need for more awareness. There is a need to adopt a frontline defense for human rights violation in Ukraine, because Russia is using a political will, is using a political will to undermine other countries, to support them.
Yes, of course. Even from this reason, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, just last Monday, just back from his official tournée, official visit to many African countries. The point of view, for example, of Minister of Foreign Affairs, how they can develop in diplomatic dialogue, for example, from these countries which not interested or not so much involved on the idea to support Ukraine in the way of diplomatic, on the way of trade agreements, etc. What do you think about this, and what do you think about the results of this official visit of Minister of Foreign Affairs to African countries?
I think it is a new approach to this area, and it's trying to find out why some other countries are not supporting this. And it will enhance cooperation between African countries to ensure that actually they have a common stand on issues to support the Ukrainian government.
We know that you're based now in Geneva. Maybe you saw some Ukrainian refugees who moved from Ukraine to Switzerland, exactly to Geneva. How Swiss people, how Swiss government, especially Geneva government, how they welcoming Ukrainians? It's any special programs for them, to integrate to society, to Swiss society?
Yeah, I do appreciate what's happening in Switzerland, because Swiss is a very democratic country. It respects the rule of law, and it can allow free movement of people from various countries. And I do believe that the government is supporting purely the refugees from Ukrainian, and they are getting support in terms of integration, and I believe that is the way to go.
Also, in a way of your non-governmental organization Africa Against Torture, you're planning in next Human Rights Council to make some side events, to talk about their problems, violence, tortures in Africa, to present in next Human Rights Council in Geneva in United Nations?
Yeah, I believe that in the coming session we will focus much on the war and the war of Ukraine and Russia. We will try to establish. We will try to find out the reports, various reports from independent institutions, and then we will organize a side event in the coming session, because this is purely a violation of human rights. We are seeing a lot of torture, we are seeing a lot of rape cases. We are also witnessing various witnesses that have been traumatized during the war, and this is purely, I believe this is a war which was planned and organized. Yeah.
Due to your own experience, for example, in Banjul, in Gambia, you visited many international conferences about the human rights.
Yeah.
Can you describe how they, doing in the way of conference and on the summit in Africa? In a specific cases you was, explored during your visit to Banjul, Gambia?
Yeah, some few years back I went to Gambia. But what I believe I've learned a lot in Europe, we have a lot of instruments for fighting human rights violations, the eradication of torture. We have various instruments, international instruments, also in regional mechanism. We have the regional mechanism in Africa, we have the regional mechanism in Europe, we have the regional mechanism in Asia and Latin America. This mechanism can also assist various countries in fight and protecting human rights violations, especially in the conflict zones where states can cooperate with the international instrument.
Sir, I would like to also ask you one brief question. Can you give some more advice for Ukrainian diplomatic mission, how they should provide it in a dialogue with Africa countries, to be more, involved, more supported from this region, exactly what is going on in Ukraine with Russia?
Yeah, I think what is happening now, it's my advice. I'm advising the diplomatic community to find a lasting solution of dialogue, because I believe dialogue is also a way to solve some conflict at a certain level. we need also to develop an inquiry of human rights violations. We are demanding the UN to get involved at the war between Ukraine. That we need independent bodies to find a lasting solution, develop an inquiry of the human rights violation there, to table at the United Nations in Geneva, and that is how we are going to fight some of these abuses, because the way things are going now, it is a continuous conflict, and there is no way the two countries will agree. So we need to have mediation, we need to use the law to propel some of these states to provide sanctions to Russian government.
Also, it's the last September, the current government and the president of Kenya was changed and elected new one. Can you say some words, about the current government and current president of Kenya? If this government can improve the level, of human rights activism in the country, or if they can change something in a way of freedom and safety in the Kenya?
Yeah, I can't say much about the current president, because it's now about a month in the office. But the way things are, I believe that we are not going to adhere to international human rights standards, because there is a lot of violation already. We see some people are being targeted. We see some missing persons. There is a lot of things going on in the country. So far, I can't describe the current government so much, but I believe it's not a government that we are going to rely to protect human rights violation in the country. We have to pursue it. We have to, as a civil society, we have to work with international partners to ensure that the government are put into toss. Yeah.
Last but not least, Mr. Koros, what do you think? How long war between Ukraine and Russia will provide? If any ideas, to have any diplomatic dialogue with Russia, all of the countries, should stop to put more sanctions against the government of Putin. What do you think?
I think what is the problem here, I think there is a lot of politics at the United Nations. States are not working together. There is a misconception of what is happening in Ukraine-Russia war. So it is economical challenges also, it's affecting the whole world. But I believe the best thing is actually to make Russia accountable for the war in Ukraine. Yeah, that is the only way, to use law to fight some of these abuses, to establish inquiries, to use diplomatic mediation, and involve other stakeholders to open up the forum for inclusivity. And I think also we need to, there is a need for the president of Russia, Putin, to focus much on what is happening, because this is destroying the innocent people. People are dying, yeah, and that is not the way we should do. I think this war is political in nature.
Thank you, Mr. Koros. Today we are talking about the future of bilateral connections between Africa countries, between Ukraine. We're talking about the war in Ukraine, about the current government and human rights, together with Mr. David Koros, the head of Africa Against the Torture non-governmental organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Welcome.